To welcome Joan Davis. She is a registered nurse, and she's presented for us in the past. She's presented lots of other places, and she's very passionate about great nutrition, and we're excited to hear what she has for us today. And before, oh, can't see you. Oh, okay. I may be at the top of your screen. Someone said they couldn't see me, but you don't need to see me. The person you want to see here is Joan. She's our presenter, and we're really looking forward to learning more about how we can take care of ourselves and have a better nutrition. So take it away.
Well, and I'm glad to welcome you. I think this is kind of a great time to have this program, because from what I understand, a lot of Americans have put on, if not a lot, at least some weight while we're sheltering in place. By golly, we're just a little too close to the kitchen, and sometimes there's a lot of stress going on. So there's lots of reasons why a lot of Americans have gained weight. Instead of the freshman 15, they're calling it the COVID 15. So hopefully 15 pounds haven't found you, but if so, then this is a great program for you to be here. And I am, my business cards say Plant-Based Joan, so I'm also known as Plant-Based Joan. I'm a nurse and I was a teacher, and I presented hundreds of programs about healthy lifestyle and nutrition. But today we're going to do something totally different. We are going on a simulated visit, and golly, none of us have traveled very much, so I thought you might like to take a trip with me. We're going to go on a simulated visit to a big food company where we're going to meet a chemist and a marketer who are going to share some of their secrets on how new food is marketed and developed. So in a moment, I'm going to zoom you right to SOS Technologies, and you are going to meet Cindy, one of their many food chemists, and she will greet you, welcome you to her lab, and answer some questions. Now, I do want to say that you know, she is going to be welcoming you and acting as host, but you may not agree with everything she's saying. You know, it might just be that some of your values might be different than hers. You can just see. Same thing with Mick, the marketing manager, who you will meet after you have a visit with Cindy. So just keep that in mind, that you don't have to accept everything Cindy says. And then after you visit with Cindy and then visit with Mick, the marketing manager, I'll come back, Plant-Based Joan, and we'll talk a little bit about how you feel about some of the things that you learned, some of the secrets you learned at SOS Technology. Are you ready for a little visit? Okay, just give me a moment so I can get Cindy. And I do want to get you to the lab. Are you ready to zoom there? Here we go. I'm going to share a screen, and let me make it nice and big for us. Whoops, I overshot. Let me go back. Now, we are now at SOS Food Technologies. I just got a call that Cindy's just busy in her lab, but she'll be down in just a second, so hold on. Hi, I'm Cindy. I am indeed one of the food chemists here. And I want to welcome you to my lab, because we have many secret formulas and the competition among food companies is fierce. We rarely have visitors here. But I know you folks have been authorized, and you aren't going to share any of our secrets, are you? Okay, then I'm happy to share some of the secrets that I have. Now, your escort, Joan, said you had many questions, and my assistant nicely typed up the questions while you were waiting. I think there are 7. So I'll do my best to answer. We have lots to share, so let's get started. Okay, first question. What do you do here at SOS Technologies? That's a great question to start with. Here at SOS Technologies, oh, by the way, that's salt, oil, and sugar. Here at SOS Technologies, we develop, manufacture, market, distribute popular food products. As you can imagine, we've got lots of competition, so we have a whole army of experts and professionals. We've got engineers to design the specific equipment and processes needed to take real food and make it into our tasty food products. We've got biologists who study human nutrition. They teach us how we can increase the body's normal hunger signals and decrease hormonal feelings of fullness or satiety. We've got researchers who design studies which reflect well on production and on our products and tilt public or professional opinion. We've got psychologists who study human food preferences and buying behaviors. And then we've got lobbyists. They're the ones with the big bucks. They really help our company, especially if the FDA tries to make unfavorable rules that hurt our business interests. They're on it. And of course, there are chemists like me who work with natural foods like green beans and fruits and vegetables and change them into new and improved food products that Americans love. It's amazing. And maybe right now I'm going to stop my screen now that we've been in the lab for a while, and then we can talk a little bit more intimately. So let me get so that we can talk nice and close. There we go. It's amazing how we can alter taste and texture and produce foods Grandma never tasted. The nutritional landscape has drastically changed in the past 100 years, even in the last 20 years. This is really an exciting time to be a food chemist, developing and designing foods not imagined a generation ago. Did you know that 80% of what Americans are eating now didn't even exist 100 years ago? I guess you could say what we do here is to make food that's easy to eat. Here's an example. Look at this potato. You see it? Okay, we use technology to peel it, mash it, cook it with oil and salt for more flavor, and then we can put it through machines to shape it, slice it perfectly, add preservatives, and then you get something like this, SOS potato chips. This food product is something you can enjoy without any of the work that the potato would involve. Isn't that amazing? And the technology is just getting better. We can add artificial flavorings and colorings to create foods Mother Nature never even dreamed of. Much of what we do is alter natural foods. We take out the fiber and the nutrients. Sometimes we add artificial vitamins and minerals back in. And as our name implies, SOS Technologies, remember that's salt, oil, and sugar. These are known as the big 3 additives. We change foods. We kind of say we make food products, and we use a lot of chemicals. You know, there are actually over 5,000 chemical additives we work with, from bleaches to preservatives to fillers. Oh, I could go on and on, but I'd better get to the next question. And let me see what that is. Question 2. So how do you create foods that are so appetizing that we can't eat just one, but we end up eating much more than we want to? That is hyperpalatability. Hyperpalatability means hyper meaning more, palatable meaning good tasting, hyperpalatable, extra appealing, irresistible. Okay, like other food companies, we've discovered just the right mix of SOS flavors that overstimulate the pleasure centers in your brain. Let me give you an example. Cheese does this. Even so much that a lot of people say, a lot of experts say it's addictive. Now, why are cheese flavored chips so tasty? Because cheese adds fat and salt that makes food taste good. There's a reason cheese is on everything now. Um, uh, by the way, have you tried our triple cheese sausage pockets? Great product. Now, staff biologists have taught us how to fool the body to eat more and ignore feelings of getting full. With ultra-processed foods, Mother Nature was smart, but not smart enough for us because we have outfoxed her, and we're winning. Now, another successful trick here is using pressure to remove fiber from grain and add air. That's called extrusion, and it creates airy, crispy, easy to digest foods. Then we use our shaping machines to spit out perfectly consistently shaped bites that don't require much chewing. Think in terms of Pringles. They dissolve instantly in your mouth. The result? Customers eat much more than they ever realize, thanks to hyperpalatability. Just love that concept. Question 3. Why do so many of your products have so much sugar in them? To answer that, you need to look at evolution. To survive, we were designed to gobble up calorie-dense foods. Now, in caveman days, when hunters found rare, higher-calorie foods like berries, they ate all they could because they might not be getting another meal for a while, especially if they're not very good hunters. Now, of course, we have no shortage of high-calorie foods, but thanks to evolution, we still crave sweet, high-calorie foods. Here at SOS, we just take advantage of this fact and give customers what they want. Whether it's ketchup, canned peaches, salad dressing, or bread, we chemists devise ways to add sugar, even if the product is already naturally sweet. We put sugar in almost all of our products, although we disguise them with chemical names. Customers like the sweetness, and they don't realize it's added sugar. And our company likes it because compared to other ingredients, like tomatoes and ketchup, sugar is a cheap substitute. It's a win-win for all, right? But here's the bad news. There are limits humans have for tolerating the sweet taste. You can go too far and customers will say, oh no, that's too sweet. You know that. Have you ever had a really sweet frosting and it just tastes cloyingly sweet? That means you've reached beyond your bliss point, the point where sweet taste is the most appealing. If you go beyond your bliss point, things taste too sweet. The good news for us food chemists is that the bliss point can gradually be moved up. If you expose customers progressively to sweeter tastes, they begin to tolerate higher levels of sugar. Since high fructose corn syrup was developed in the 70s, we food chemists have been sneaking in a lot of our products. We've been very successful increasing customers' tolerance to sweet taste. They, of course, don't realize that's why our products taste so good, sweet and good, unless they read labels carefully. But come on, who really reads labels? Oops, I'm sorry. My assistant just reminded me, we don't call it high fructose corn syrup anymore. We just call it corn syrup. It sounds healthier, and it's less of a worry for the health nutrition crowd. Now, the next question. Let's see, that's number 4. What about salt? I know it can contribute to high blood pressure and other conditions. Can't you make products with less salt? Well, let's look at salt. Like sugar, there is a limit on the amount of salt folks tolerate before they say it's too salty. But the good news is people's tolerance for salt can also be manipulated. This is especially important for companies like ours because we're using more and more chemicals as we create our highly marketable foods. And unfortunately, chemicals taste, well, like chemicals. They're astringent and bitter. Salt is the perfect camouflage. It hides bad taste, and it's cheap, much cheaper than other spices. Yeah, we know that salt increases blood pressure, but people are so used to salty foods now, it's really too much to expect them to give up their chips and salty treats. We got to give them what they want, right? Besides, have you ever tasted cheese curls without salt? Oh, they're awful. There's a brand of salt-free potato chips out now. You can just guess how well they're doing. On that note, we'll go on to the next question. Question 5. It seems like many of the packaged foods we eat, including those made by SOS Technologies, are surprisingly high in fat. Why is that? Fat. That's another success story. Not only does fat taste good, but it also produces a pleasing sensation in the mouth. We call that mouthfeel, and we strive to create products with good mouthfeel sensation. Let me give you some background on how we get our customers to not only eat, but crave full-fat foods. It turns out that fats in a liquid state are often less appealing. People see a layer of oil on their soup or on their pasta, and they reject it. We've learned that we can beat or blend the oil so it's creamed into batters. We call that emulsification, and we use it for croissants and crackers. Same amount of fat, but it's more acceptable. Another thing we can do is hydrogenation, which creates saturated fat. It doesn't look or feel like regular fat because it's solid at room temperature. Think of cheese. Cheese is a saturated fat. People are starting to learn saturated fat is less healthy. And even though artificially made trans fats are now mostly outlawed, they're still available in animal products, and we still can use them if they're less than 1%. Another neat thing about fat, unlike sugar and salt, there's no built-in limit to the amount of fat that people can tolerate. This is especially helpful because we've learned that if you add more sugar to processed foods, you can add more cheap fat, and it's not detected. People notice the sugar, not the fat. Another really big secret about ultra-processed foods: put sugar and fat together, and they magically team up on your taste buds. They boost each other, creating elevated allure that neither sugar nor fat alone would cause. It's called taste synergy, and it helps create those hyper-palatable foods. That's why our competition brags, you can never just eat one Oreo. It's the sugar-fat combo to timing the taste buds. Another combination we food chemists take advantage of is the salt-fat combo. Potato chips are a really good example. There's a reason why we can brag, but you can't eat just one. Potato chips have just the right combination of salt and fat combined with sugars for the potato starch, which does turn into sugar, and you've got the ultimate hyper-palatable snack food. We'll go on to the next question. Okay, question number 6. I know many of SOS products contain soy oil, but I've heard soy oil has some health risks. Is there any truth to that? Here's a good example of the challenge food chemists face. Our management has been very strong in having our company use soybean oil because it's cheap, it's easily available, and people like it because they hear soy and they think, oh, it's plant-based and healthy. But do you know how hard it is to get oil out of soy pellets? Let me show you what a soy pellet looks like. I'm hoping you can see this. Let's see. You see, that's about the size of a soy pellet. They're tough. They're hard little like nuggets. It's not like an olive. You squeeze an olive and you get some oil. With soy pellets, you have to do a lot of work to get the oil out of those hard little pellets. You have to dry it, dehull it, crack it, flatten it into flakes, and then de-oil each little soybean kernel. That takes tons of processing and lots of chemical processes. We used to use a mechanical press, a hydraulic expeller, that squeezed out 70% of soybeans oil. But now management is really pushing us to get 99% of the oil out. And that can only be done, unfortunately, with chemical solvents. The problem is solvents contain hexane. Now, OSHA and EPA have recognized hexane as a neurotoxin. On top of that, it seems we're learning when soybean oil is heated, like fried, with frying, it can produce toxic aldehydes, sometimes referred to as HNEs. And those can interfere with enzyme, hormone, and protein synthesis. It's an issue our company is seriously looking at, but we have to pay attention to our legal team, and our legal team has advised us to say, right now, no published health study has concluded definitively that soybean oil is harmful. Like other industry leaders, we'll continue to use it, but we're monitoring research. And now I see we have one last question. You look lean and healthy, ma'am. I'm wondering if you regularly eat many of the food products your company produces. Actually, sir, I don't. I would remind you that as a chemist, I not only know the names of the chemicals, so I can read those confusing food labels, but I also know what chemicals do in the body. So maybe that gives me some insider information. Don't quote me on that. On that note, we'll stop these questions, and I think it's time to turn you over to Mick, the marketing manager. I'm going to escort you to your office, but I do see that we have a few questions on chat, and I promise we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So we hold those questions because Mick's he's a really busy guy, and I know his time is limited. So I'm going to turn you over to Mick. He'll be with you very shortly. I think we can get into let me get into the screen I want to share with you. Okay, let's move on to our last screen. Oh, there's Mick. Okay, he'll be with you in just a second. I'll let him finish what he's drawing on his board. Well, hi there. I'm Mick, your marketing manager, and I'm a busy guy, as Cindy has said. I understand you want to know about how we market products here at SOS. My job is to sell, and I do it very well. They don't call me Slick Mick for nothing. And time is money, but I'll be glad to spend a few minutes sharing tricks of the trade. I know you have 7 questions, so let's get started. I'll read the 7 questions that you've submitted, and let's do what Cindy did. We'll make it a little bit more intimate here. I'm going to get right here. Okay. First question: how has food marketing changed over the years? Oh, that's a great question. Marketing has drastically changed in the past. People either grew their own food or they just bought simple food from farmers. Can you imagine? And later from supermarkets with mostly whole foods. And later things changed and people began eating some processed foods. But now what we eat has radically changed. Now we eat processed foods, ultra processed foods sometimes, and we have so many companies creating different products. It's become highly competitive. I can tell you supermarket shelves are battlefields, which is why we need huge budgets to push our products. It's especially challenging because when you think of it, we're promoting something, processed food, that customers generally have plenty of already. Actually, if you look at some obesity and disease statistics, Americans have too much already, and we're eating too many calories, especially high fat, high sugar, high salt containing foods. just the kind of foods that we market. Considering all that, it's amazing how well we're doing. And on that positive note, I'll go on to the next question. And the next question is, what besides taste would you say is the big hook or advantage of processed food products? Well, it's gotta be convenience. Ever since the 50s, when Jiffy cakes came out, the emphasis has been on minimizing time in the kitchen. The heat and serve concept largely nudged out home cooking using whole foods, and then came ready to eat. You didn't even have to heat it. Ready to eat products like Tang, Pop-Tarts, Hot Pockets. We were technology's gift to the harried housewife, and now we just represent an easier life for everyone. One recent study showed that 86% of the packaged foods sold by the top 25 food manufacturers were ultra processed, making them super convenient. Of course, convenience also involves having long shelf life, which makes it possible to have almost instant food available for you, which doesn't require much, if any, preparation and lasts forever. What could be more convenient? I see the next question asked about other hooks. The next question, besides convenience foods, are there other big hooks that processed food manufacturers have to encourage customers to buy them? Well, fresh foods basically are high maintenance, and I think we all realize that. They require careful planting, harvesting, transporting, handling, and they may not be available all year round or at all locations. The food products we sell, on the other hand, don't require any or minimal care thanks to the preservatives and chemicals we put in them. They're easily available and easily mass produced, which makes them cheap. That means we can keep costs down and still maintain big profits, which of course our investors like. And the next question is, what other marketing approaches have been successful? Well, to sell food, as Cindy told you, we need to manipulate customers' taste buds, but we also have to manipulate their emotions. You know, food is a real emotional issue. So if we can play on our customers' emotions, we'll sell them every time. It's called marketing to the emotions. Here's how it works. We have to play on customers' good feelings and work on encouraging customers to make connections between our foods and good times. You know how Coke and some beer brands associate with sporting events like football and other fun times? Think of Super Bowl and all the beer and fast food commercials. Another successful approach is to manipulate parents' guilty feelings. Now, of course, all parents want to give kids what they want, but they also want to give them natural, good foods, and usually they're not one and the same thing. To ease parents' guilt, we start with a healthy food, like a whole grain or a whole fruit or vegetable, and then we add sugar, salt, and fat so that the kids like it, and then we take all the fiber out. Even though it is none of the original nutrients, we can still label it from real food and natural. The kids like the sugar, salt, and fat. The parents like seeing from real fruit and natural, and we make the sale. Another win-win for us and our customers. Next question. The next question is number 5, and that is, what are some of your other marketing tricks and goals? Oh, like our competition, we promote supersizing. We encourage customers' willingness to indulge by increasing portion size. You know, it costs us relatively little to add more food product to the packaging for extra large cookie boxes or more cheese on our pizza. It makes the customers happy because they think they're getting a bargain, and we're happy because we sell more cookies or pizza. We're also spending increasing money advertising to kids. TV, internet, especially social media. We love to get them when they're young. Since kids don't learn to be skeptical till they're older, they're more easily swayed by marketing claims, and they often convince their parents to buy our products. What are our goals? We like to think big. And that means moving beyond the grocery store. Processed foods in general have made progress towards that goal because they're now appearing in most stores, in gas stations, hardware stores, even hospital cafes. Americans find you can't go anywhere where you can't find processed foods. Our overall goal is making processed food available everywhere. We want to create a social environment in which it's okay to eat all day long in more places with larger portions. Okay, I'm getting a little philosophic, but that's our goal. I'll go on to the next question. The next question, oh, it's kind of a toughie. Are you concerned that some of these products, processed foods that your company is marketing might be unhealthy because they eliminate fiber, introduce chemicals to our body, which our bodies haven't been exposed to before, and add lots of sugar, fat, and salt, and cholesterol? In short, why don't you sell healthier foods? Sounds like we got a health nut in the crowd. To answer that question, I'll remind you, I'm not a healthcare provider. I don't profess to know what's healthy or not. That's not my job. My job is to market processed foods, to make people not only like, but crave our food products. Of course, if a person wants to focus on health and not buy our products, that's up to him or her. You know, the food processing industry tried to do just what you described, make food healthy, and the attempts just failed miserably. A few years ago, Campbell's Soup, reacting to concerns about sodium, cut way back on the salt in some of their soups. What happened? The customers complained of how tasteless the soups were. Sales went way down, so up went the sodium. In 2003, Kraft tried to limit salt, fat, and sugar in some products. Again, sales took a nosedive, and the company refocused on their more traditional formulas. PepsiCo launched a campaign for healthier foods, promoting its line, "Good for you" products, but sales dropped and management demanded the company return to promote its maybe not so good products. It seems we've done a pretty good job of teaching our customers to love our sweet, salty, fatty foods. Getting them to revert to more natural tastes is going to take more patience and effort than our profit-minded investors will allow. Guess we have time for one more question. Last question. I'll ask the same question I asked Cindy, the food chemist. I'm wondering if you regularly eat the foods your company markets. Like everyone, I'm concerned about health. As you can see, I've got quite a pot belly here, and from our foods, I'll have to admit. And I'll confess, I have high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and but who doesn't? My doctor warned me I'm pre-diabetic, but like most Americans, I have a sweet tooth, and you know I travel a lot, and I eat on the road constantly. I'd say right now, convenience is the most important thing for me. I need fast foods. My lifestyle is really hectic, so I depend greatly on grab-and-go foods like our company makes. I'm not complaining though. Like most food processing marketing managers, I'm compensated very well. So maybe it balances out. Oops, time for me to get going. Sales awaiting. I hope you've learned about how we make and market our delicious foods here at SOS Technologies. Don't forget to get your free samples on your way out, and I will leave you now. I understand your escort, Plant-Based Joan, will help you process this visit, although I think she may have a different take on some of the things Cindy and I talked about here. I will get her back. Just be patient, take a break here. If you have questions, you'll be able to bring those up shortly. Hi, I'm back, Plant-Based Joan, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's kind of our facetious attempt to look at food manufacturers. I want to get to chat, but I do want to tell you about some of the resources available to you. Now, if you didn't know before, you know now that thanks to the huge profit in processed foods, There's a ton of manufacturing companies out there, and each has a whole army of knowledgeable specialists working to produce and market foods that are not necessarily healthy for you. But they're experts who know what they're doing, and they can create food-like products that will almost be irresistibly tempting. They've got scientists who can present pseudoscience that confuse the issue and can convince you and policymakers that their food products, if not healthy, at least aren't that bad. And they've got huge marketing budgets to hook you and even your kids. About now, you might be feeling kind of overwhelmed. What can you do? Should you just give up, bite down on that latest hyper-palatable food? Take, go ahead and take that bite? No. Take heart. You can avoid being hooked. And you've begun that process today just by being here. You're more aware of what you're up against. Now, you're on your way to gaining the knowledge to defend yourself. Now, to further protect yourself, I want you to take advantage of resources that I've dug out and are available right at your library, right at the Algonquin Library to educate yourself. So what can you do? First of all, I don't know if all of you have, I know that Kristen sent you a link, and you may not have had time to print it or even look at it. But it's available for you, and you can look at resources. There are some excellent ones. I'm just gonna hold up one of the resources that I've prepared for you. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but as you can see, it includes books, several books, including one book that is available at your library, but there are many, and it's this one. And this is one where I did a lot of research for this program, but this is one that I'm hoping you're seeing it the right side. I don't know. Kristen, is this backwards? Am I holding it so you can see it?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we can see that great.
Okay, when I look at my screen, it's transposed, it's going the other way. But this is a book that is, I can hold it back a little, that is available, one of many that would be answering your questions in depth. So that's included on that resource list, but there are other books as well. And I wanted you to be aware that your library is on top of it and has these resources for you. Kristen, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that?
Sure. So that book that you just held up, Salt, Sugar, Fat?
Michael Moss.
Yeah, Michael Moss one. We have that book in a physical copy at the library, which if you have an Algonquin library card, we are now offering curbside pickup for. So we have that. We own it on CD. And then we have multiple copies available on our ebook and audiobook download platform, which is called Libby. So sometimes it's called Overdrive, but if it's just an app called Libby, and you can access that with your library card, and you should be able to access that as an ebook to read or an audiobook to listen to. And I can say that the audiobook has an excellent narrator. So for those audiophiles out there, Scott Brick is the narrator, and he does a great job. So so I definitely recommend that resource. And if there are others that you see on the list that you don't see available in our catalog or online, please email me, or you can contact the library, and we'll do our best to get that for you.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. I like to, highlight you've got resources available. You don't have to necessarily go out and buy a book. What I would say, besides being aware of the resources, is know where to get reliable nutritional information. There's a lot of myths out there. In fact, I do a program on fake news nutrition edition because there's so many myths. People that are trying to sell you products, supplements, etc., and have lots of whoppers, and you need to learn how to evaluate those food claims. So, what you want to do is at least know a couple sources you can go to, and that's included on that website, excuse me, that list. Here's a website, nutritionfacts.org. That Dr. Michael Greger, his motto is "Show me the science," and he is very good about explaining food claims and kind of debunking some. Another thing you can do is learn to cook, because then you know what goes in your food. And a lot of people during this COVID time have rediscovered cooking. So you may not have the time, but you can make real simple bowl type meals, stir fries, and avoid that salt, oil, and sugar. You're going to have a little bit, but you're not going to make those hyper palatable foods. And then you want to learn to read labels, because sometimes what's on the front, natural, from fruit, is very deceptive. You need to figure out how much fat, how much salt is in each product. So learn to read labels. That can be a whole nother program. Reclaim your manipulated taste buds. And sometimes you might say, oh, I don't think I can. I'm so used to sweets. I'm so used to fat. You have, I bet you have, at least you know that you can do it. I'm going to give you an example to make it a little easier to understand. Most of us, if we drink milk, we might have started with whole milk. And then we learned it had a lot of fat, and we maybe went to 2%. And then we learned, oh, maybe I should go to 1% or skim. And then you go to a friend's house and they're still drinking whole milk, and you taste it, and suddenly it tastes very fat, almost like cream. And what you've done is you've retrained your taste buds, so they're not so used to that fat taste. And you can do the same thing with sugar. If you give up sugar for about 3 weeks, you suddenly, things that didn't taste so sweet, fruit, suddenly taste much sweeter, because you've retrained your taste buds. So there's whole books about how you can do that. But that is something that you can control. And then be aware that your emotions might be being tugged at by advertising. So don't fall for that. And don't let your children try to, manipulate you, because they see those food products and they don't know better. And they think they should have, the real sweet, almost candy that's cereal. So not easy. Again, I told you about the book, Salt, Sugar, and Fat, Michael Moss. Now you might say, Joan, I don't have time to read. Well, I'm going to make it easy. There are 3 YouTubes interviews with Michael Moss, and one's 10 minutes, one's 2 minutes, and one's 25 minutes. So again, that's on that resource list. Pick the one that might work for you, and I think you'll appreciate those articles. Now I have lots of internet articles for you, and then I had 2 articles, how to fight against hyperpalatable foods. If you can print that up, and it gives you some ammunition to arm yourself against the whole armies of folks that are in food processing plants. And then I also gave you an article, 10 reasons why processed food is so bad for you. So those are resources that are available to you. I think now what I'd like to do is open it up for questions. And I know 2 patient people have been waiting and waiting for that have had comments. So let's see if I can find those. Oh, I see. That was just an initial one. Now we can open up for questions. If we have any questions.
Yeah, feel free to, you can either type your question in the chat, or if you, there is an option to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I can unmute you if you'd like to ask the question in person. I see one person has their hand raised now, and I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk or if you didn't want to talk. So if you do have a question, oh, here's one.
I see it. I can just read the question. It said, 2 questions. The first one was, what's a healthy breakfast? Okay. And, it's all personal choice, but if you're going to try to avoid McMuffins or, you know, what's that little, I know there's a couple really processed breakfasts. Think in terms of healthy whole foods, oatmeal, and you know, you can get packages of steel cut oatmeal. If you get the packages generally of oatmeal, they add sugar, so it's a little harder to find plain oatmeal, but that's a quick breakfast. You know, if you cook breakfast, that's even better, and you can make it the night before. But oatmeal is an excellent breakfast. I'm going to tell you, since you said, what do I consider a healthy breakfast? The way I like my oatmeal, and now this is a big step, but I've been eating whole food plant-based for years now. I like to have my greens, start my day with some greens. So when I have oatmeal, I put lettuce or spinach underneath, raw lettuce or spinach, not a lot, just to give it some crunch. Then I put my oatmeal, and then lots of fruit. You know, whatever we happen to have on hand. Blueberries are especially nice, but strawberries, you know, and that's a very healthy breakfast. Now, if you say, no, I'm running out the door, you can still, you know, grab whole grain breads, and then maybe don't put butter on them, maybe put avocado. That would make a quick breakfast. If you really want a quick breakfast, grab a couple pieces of fruit. You probably want some protein, but it doesn't have to be meat. You can have, now, this may sound really strange, but a lot of people in Europe, especially in Ireland, when my husband and I travel, eat beans for breakfast, baked beans. Now you might say, oh, that's too much, but you could have some protein, plant-based protein that would work nicely for your breakfast. Yogurt. Now I would eat soy yogurt, but maybe you're still having milk, in which case you'd have yogurt with your cereal or separately with fruit. So those are some possibilities for healthy breakfast. And there's nothing wrong with leftovers. If you get into the habit of, you know, I had a really good noodle dinner last night. I didn't eat all of it. It's great to have it for breakfast. So I don't know if that answers your questions. There's so many good books out there. One of the ones I mentioned is Plant-Based Nutrition for Dummies, or no, it's the complete, they have both, for the For Dummies guide and the Complete Idiot's Guide, and they would give you all kinds of suggestions in either of those books about what would be a healthy breakfast. Now, I think another question was, what about healthy cookbooks? And I have some favorites, but I really like, I don't know if you're aware of Forks Over Knives. Forks Over Knives is a video, and I'm sure, Kristen, you have it in your library, and you probably have, there's an implementation guide that goes with it. The Forks Over Knives, I think, plan, or it's got a title like that, and they would give examples, but they also have good cookbooks. Now, Dr. Michael Greger has a How Not to Die cookbook. It's beautiful, but it's kind of a lot of steps. I like cookbooks that are simpler, but you know what? All you have to do is Google. If you put in vegan cookbooks, you're going to get cookbooks without animal products, and they're going to be pretty healthy. You can put whole food plant-based. That's the term we're using more than vegan, because you know, you can eat miserably as a vegan. You can eat a lot of junk food because it's processed. So if you want to go more with unprocessed foods, if you put in whole food plant-based cookbooks, you'll be amazed. You'll find tons of them. And what I say is, don't buy it. See if you can get it at the library, because some cookbooks are sneaky. They'll give you, oh, it's only 5 ingredients, but then one of the ingredients is a sauce. And I started out as not much of a cook. I'm getting better, but I like simple. And, you know, you'll find, I have one cookbook that's, I think it says 8 ingredients, the 8 ingredient cookbook. And, you know, I like cookbooks that have lots of beautiful pictures and few, not a whole bunch of steps. Okay. Ken has said the product called Veggie Snacks or something that is out. Ken, your comment, are you wondering, is it better than regular potato chips? Or are you wondering, is it healthy?
Ken, if you'd like, I can unmute you if you'd like to, let's see here.
I only saw part of your question.
Okay, he says the product veggie snacks or something like that. The impression is that the product consists of vegetables. Guess what? It is in reality potato chips that are shaped like vegetables. How can the manufacturer get away with this? Where are the government regulators?
Well, right now, especially, we have weakened the regulators, but they never really, I mean, they are there to keep it. Is it safe to eat a food like that? Yes, it won't kill you. Is it going to make you healthy? FDA doesn't really regulate that. That's why we have to kind of be our own watchdogs. Part of it is the FDA has two missions. One is to promote agriculture, and the other one is to keep our food healthy. Well, when you promote agriculture, a lot of times you pay attention to big food companies because they have lobbyists, and you pay attention to big milk, big dairy, big meat. So they aren't necessarily healthy, but the problem with those veggie snacks is people see that, oh, it's got squash, it's got pumpkin in it. But look at the oil. They have tons of oil, and we know that that is, a heart concern, extra cholesterol. Look at the salt. So yes, very sneaky. Unfortunately, you can't necessarily look for the government to protect you, other than they're going to keep you safe. Are they going to keep you healthy? No. I know there was another question that flashed by. What was that?
So Mike asks, what is the difference between whole grain bread versus 100% whole wheat, and what are some good brands?
Oh, okay. Whole grain is what you want. Whole wheat, it may start with wheat, but they've taken some of the fiber out, so it's not as nutritious. So people say, oh, it's whole wheat. Well, you can do better than that. You can get the whole grain, which will give you the fiber. Now, brands, and you can look at brands. Ezekiel brand is one brand, but it's expensive. But I've seen other brands, and it somewhat depends on what store you're at. When you go shopping, sometimes you have to take your little magnifying glass, but for breads, look for whole grain. And once you find a brand you like, then, that's the one you'll probably want to stick with. Some of the, I'm trying to think of that one manufacturer, makes all kinds of bread, and they have some wonderful whole grain, but it's escaping me the name of that company. But my husband and I, we look at the breads, and one looks really good. I tell you what, one of the ways you can tell is pick it up. If it's really heavy, and if it says made from 7 or 12 grains, you're on the right path.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask or advice or?
You can comment. You don't have to ask a question. Maybe you've seen some things that made you raise your eyebrows.
So Diane is asking, what about juices?
Okay. Well, juices, you have to first of all look, are they 100% juice? Because if they aren't, and what juice? Because a lot of times they'll say, oh, it's pomegranate juice or grape juice, and then you look at the label, and you'll find, oh, it's mostly apple juice. And apple juice can be apples. You've lost the fiber. They may add sugar. So you want to see what have they done to this juice, from when it came in as a fruit. What have they done? It's much healthier with all as an intact fruit. And if you want to squeeze your own, it's not bad, but even then you're losing the fiber. And we learned one thing Americans are very deficient is fiber. So you don't want to not have fiber. Now, to have an occasional glass of juice, that's no problem. But some people, oh, that's my breakfast. Every morning I have a big glass of orange juice. Oh, you're so much better to have a big orange because an orange juice is, you know, very concentrated as far as sweetness. It's good, but then you shouldn't have so much. You know, you're going to use a lot of calories, and then you're going to try to get the rest of your food in. There was a question about baked apples versus regular uncooked apples. Is that right?
Yeah. So, yeah, does a baked apple have less fiber than a raw apple?
No, it's still there. It's when you start cutting it and processing it. So you're still going to get fiber. And especially you leave the skin on it. That's all the fiber. So you know, baked apple may not be quite as healthy as a fresh apple, simply because you're probably going to add a little bit of sweetener. But if it's your dessert, you know, it's a wonderful dessert, a baked apple. So enjoy it.
Let's see. This is from Ken asking or commenting. Let's see. Sometimes 7-grain bread has twice the calories of whole wheat bread, calorie-wise. Are you better off with the latter? You can eat twice as many slices and get the same fiber content.
No, you're better still because you're getting some nutrients that they take out. And then they may artificially add, you know, vitamins, but what we've learned is the artificial vitamins generally don't work as well. We learned that with vitamin C. So I tell you what, once you start eating whole foods, you don't really look so much at calories because that fiber bread is going to fill you up. And you know, you will be more satisfied versus a couple of pieces, especially, I know you're not eating white bread, but I mean, you can eat a lot of white bread and you're not getting any nutrients and you're not being filled up, versus a nice heavy bread will fill you up. So you're going to eat less. If you have more calories, calories aren't so important as are you getting the nutrients in, and if they're not fat calories, you know, it's not such an issue. You don't want to go overboard, and I'm not saying you should eat a lot of bread. It's, you know, you're better off with eating beans and fruits and vegetables, but you know, some bread is still a processed food. You know, you aren't eating the actual grain. So quinoa is healthier than what goes into bread, but we all like our sandwiches and it's a quick thing to grab. So but if you're going to grab bread, the more whole it can be, the better, even if you get some extra calories.
Okay, thanks. And Paula says the whole grain products may need to be phased in, like the milk, whole to skim transition. I got whole grain pasta, and even with chunky homemade marinara sauce, my kids wouldn't eat it.
Exactly. Yeah. And likewise, beans. For some people, they okay, I'm going whole food plant-based, and they eat tons of beans, and then they have terrible gas. You know, our bodies have to adjust. So you just take it slowly. And with adding new products, and you may find my husband has never gotten quite used to, we used to eat a lot of scrambled eggs, and now we don't eat eggs. So we tried tofu, and everybody raved tofu scramble. It's wonderful. Well, we haven't found that to be delicious for us. So, you know, some things you're not gonna agree with, but oh, I see another question. If you like mozzarella cheese sticks, what's a good alternative? You know, there is an alternative. We're lucky because, you know, if we talked about this 10 years ago, there were no alternatives, but now there are lots of good nut cheeses. And now my husband and I have found there are cheese sticks And these are nut-based cheeses, but they look like regular cheese sticks. They're not going to peel like, you know, if you get a string cheese, they don't string, but they are still handy to grab. Now, is cheese a healthy product? Even nut cheese? Not necessarily. It has a lot of saturated fat, but if you're trying to get away from the animal products, you know, that will work. And there are lots of cheeses that are made. Actually, there's a new cheese out if you want to try something new. My husband and I came across, it's called Game Changer Cheese Sauce, and it's made with oatmeal, smoked peppers, liquid smoke. It's got some ingredients, you know, that'll give it some taste. It has quite a bit of salt. I don't like that, but you have to make it in a high speed blender like a Vitamix. But if you Google Game Changer Cheese, kind of an eccentric woman from the South with a delightful accent will tell you how to make cheese made out of oatmeal. But you can Google and get lots of recipes for how to make cheese. But if you just want to buy some cheese, I think at Woodman's, if you shop there, my husband found these cheese sticks that, you know, we're not going to have one every day because they are pretty high in calories and fat, but they're a nice treat.
Okay, I think you just mentioned where you do some of your grocery shopping, but Andrea asked, where do you do your grocery shopping? So do you go to Woodman's or other places?
Yes, and certainly Whole Foods, they were sort of the first one to carry foods that don't have oil a lot of times, and products that are healthier, but they are expensive. Woodman's is cheaper, and Woodman's aisle 22 has a lot of, well, aisle 22 in Algonquin, I should say, has a lot of products that are you might say vegan or whole food, plant-based, on aisle 22. So Woodman's, Whole Food, a lot of, certainly you can buy foods at health food stores, but those are really expensive and they don't have quite the variety. But, you know, sometimes you can get great things at Aldi's and Jewel too. So you can certainly get plant-based lunch meat and cheeses at Jewel. Aldi's, not so much. They have some veggie burgers and some products, but.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns, like, as a lot of the like gluten-free and a lot of healthy foods that are now being so processed that it almost, you kind of wonder, is this any
Exactly.
better than...
Well, gluten-free was sort of something that was marketed. Very few people have to worry about, you know, gluten if you are sensitive. Now, certainly if you have, you know, an actual a reaction to gluten, then you need, you know, that could be a medical emergency if you eat gluten. But for most people, you know, they learned about this and said, oh, I'll just go gluten-free for the heck of it. And yeah, you end up eating a lot of processed foods, and the gluten's taken out, but some other things that aren't so good are put in. So, you know, again, you're better off just going, the more whole foods you have, you know, it's not necessarily healthy to eat a cookie, and it's not healthier to say, well, it's a gluten-free cookie. It's still not a healthy product. A nice apple, you know, for dessert is going to be much better. So yes, be aware. For some people, they have to be gluten-free. Vast majority of us, we can eat, you know, products. Now, I'm not saying a cookie is all that healthy either. Maybe one you make only occasionally, you know, that might be acceptable. But you know, just don't reach for gluten-free products and think, oh, they're great. As pointed out, they're usually highly processed.
Thank you. All right. Well, I guess if there aren't any other questions, I think a lot of us have a lot of reading to do, and
Yeah. Well, this is kind of a fun program. It's different than all my other programs because I don't usually come in as 3 different people. And some people, when I presented this program, thought, oh, well, she sounded like that's really a good idea. And it's like, no, it's supposed to be very facetious, but share some of the, we're up against a lot of a whole armies of people who want us to eat unhealthfully. So, and there's reasons why they do that, and they have secrets. So I kind of wanted to share that with you. So I appreciate your letting me be a little, a bit of a ham trying these 3 different roles. But I hope you agree more with Plant-Based Joan than Cindy, the food chemist, or Mick, the marketing manager.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Joan. And I guess if there aren't any other questions, we'll call it a night.
Okay. Go. I was gonna say go home, but you're home now. Enjoy some healthy food. Go eat a piece of fruit. How's that?
That sounds like marching orders. So yes, absolutely. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.